For most of her career, Sally Field was underestimated. Not because she lacked talent, but because Hollywood decided very early who they thought she was. First, she was the cheerful surfer girl from Gidget. Then she became the flying nun in one of television's strangest hit shows. Audiences loved her. Critics didn't take her seriously. And the industry quietly assumed they already knew exactly what she was capable of. But Sally Field spent decades proving them wrong. 2 Academy Awards later, she had become one of the most respected actresses in Hollywood. And yet, years after fighting to earn that respect, she walked onto a movie set and found herself dealing with a man who made her feel dismissed all over again. That man was Tommy Lee Jones. The movie was Backroads, released in 1981. On paper, the film sounded promising. A gritty road drama directed by respected filmmaker Martin Ritt. Sally Field and Tommy Lee Jones playing emotionally damaged strangers traveling through the American South. 2 serious actors. Strong material. The kind of film that should have worked beautifully. But behind the scenes, something was already going wrong. And according to Sally Field, it became one of the worst professional experiences of her life. Years later, she described Tommy Lee Jones in terms so blunt that people were stunned she said them publicly. She admitted she hated him more than anyone she had ever worked with. Coming from an actress who spent decades in Hollywood, that was not a casual statement. This was someone who had worked with hundreds of actors, directors, producers, and crews across film and television. She was not known for public feuds or dramatic exaggerations. So when she said it, people paid attention. But here's what made the situation even more complicated. The problem was not one explosive fight. It was something slower and more exhausting. A constant clash between 2 completely different personalities and acting styles. Sally Field approached acting emotionally. She believed in vulnerability, in openness, in building a performance from real feeling. That kind of work depends on trust between actors. It depends on collaboration, on mutual respect. Tommy Lee Jones, meanwhile, had a very different reputation. Even early in his career, Jones was known for being intense, demanding, and sometimes difficult. He had strong opinions about scenes and little patience for approaches that differed from his own. People who worked with him often describe him as intimidating. On the set of Backroads, those 2 personalities collided almost immediately. Crew members later described the atmosphere as deeply uncomfortable. The tension between them became impossible to hide. And strangely enough, that real-life hostility actually improved the movie. Sally later admitted that many scenes barely required acting because her frustration with Jones was already real. The anger audiences saw on screen was not fully performance. Some of it was genuine. Critics praised the raw emotional tension between them, never realizing the chemistry came from 2 actors who genuinely could not stand each other. The professional result looked convincing. The personal reality was miserable. But to understand why the experience affected Sally Field so deeply, you have to understand who she already was by that point. Because by 1981, she had already fought harder for her career than most people realized. Born in Pasadena, California, in 1946, Sally grew up around the entertainment industry. Her mother was an actress. Her stepfather, Jock Mahoney, worked as a stuntman and actor. But those connections did not guarantee success. If anything, they gave her a front-row seat to how brutal Hollywood could be. As a young actress, she became famous almost instantly through Gidget. Audiences adored her. Then came The Flying Nun, where she played a cheerful nun who could literally fly. The show became a hit. And that success became a trap. Hollywood stopped seeing her as a serious actress. To the industry, she was cute, funny, safe. Nobody imagined she could handle demanding dramatic work. For years, she struggled to escape that image. And instead of accepting it, she fought back. She studied acting seriously with legendary teacher Lee Strasberg at the Actor Studio. That decision changed everything. Then came Sybil. The role required her to portray multiple personalities in one performance. Emotionally intense. technically difficult. And she was extraordinary in it. She won an Emmy, and suddenly Hollywood began looking at her differently. 3 years later came Norma Rae, the film that transformed her career permanently. Playing a factory worker who becomes involved in labor organizing, Sally delivered one of the most powerful performances of the era. The famous scene where she silently holds up a sign reading Union became iconic. She won her first Academy Award. After years of dismissal, she had finally forced the industry to respect her. So when she walked onto the set of Backroads and encountered a co-star who treated her dismissively, she had absolutely no patience left for it. And there was another reason the conflict hit her so personally. She had just come out of one of the most emotionally complicated relationships of her life. That relationship was with Burt Reynolds. The two met while filming Smokey and the Bandit in 1977. The movie became a massive hit. Audiences loved them together instantly. They had chemistry both on screen and off. Reynolds later described Sally Field as the love of his life. But Sally's own description of the relationship, especially in her memoir years later, was far more complicated. She cared deeply about him, but she also described him as emotionally difficult, famous, proud, used to being the center of attention. Sally later admitted she often felt like a supporting character in his world rather than an equal partner with her own needs and ambitions. Their relationship became painful over time, especially as she fought harder to establish herself professionally. They officially broke up in 1980, though things remained emotionally complicated for years afterward. That experience changed her. It taught her exactly what she needed from the people around her, both personally and professionally. Respect, equality, trust. She had spent too long fighting to be taken seriously to tolerate being patronized by anyone anymore. And that's what made the Tommy Lee Jones situation feel like more than just an annoying co-star. To Sally Field, it represented every person who had ever underestimated her. By the mid-1980s, her career reached another level entirely. She won her second Oscar for Places in the Heart, playing a widow struggling to save her family farm during the Great Depression. During her acceptance speech, she delivered the famous line people still quote decades later, "You like me, you really like me." The moment became legendary, though often misunderstood and mocked unfairly over the years. But the emotion behind it was genuine. Sally wasn't begging for approval. She was reacting to finally being recognized after years of rejection and dismissal. Then came Steel Magnolias, where she starred alongside Dolly Parton, Shirley MacLaine, Olympia Dukakis, Daryl Hannah, and Julia Roberts. Her emotional breakdown scene at the cemetery became one of the most heartbreaking moments in modern film history. And what connected all of Sally Field's greatest performances was the same thing: honesty. She never tried to make emotions prettier or easier than they really were. She leaned directly into discomfort, grief, frustration, and vulnerability. That commitment to emotional truth became her signature as an actress. And it also explains why she reacted so strongly to people she viewed as dishonest, dismissive, or disrespectful. In 2018, Sally published her memoir, In Pieces. And readers immediately realized this was not the kind of celebrity memoir written to protect reputations or settle scores politely. It was brutally honest. She wrote openly about her childhood, her family, her struggles in Hollywood, and her complicated relationship with Burt Reynolds. She discussed difficult experiences that many actors would have buried forever. And within that larger story, the Tommy Lee Jones chapter resurfaced too. What surprised people was not just what she said. It was how calmly and directly she said it. There was no dramatic revenge story. No screaming match.
No scandalous reveal.
Just an honest acknowledgement that some people make your life harder, and sometimes the resentment never fully disappears. Sally Field never framed the experience as some great lesson or personal triumph. She simply told the truth about it. Now in her late 70s, Sally Field continues to work, speak openly, and choose projects that genuinely interest her. She has spoken about sobriety, motherhood, aging, and survival with the same honesty that defined her acting career. Looking back, The Tommy Lee Jones conflict almost feels less like celebrity gossip and more like another chapter in a much larger story. The story of a woman who spent her entire life refusing to let other people define her worth. And maybe that's why her words about him landed so hard. Because by the time Sally Field said them publicly, she had already spent decades learning exactly who she was.